Hi there guys, in this video what I want to be talking about is the topic of astral sex. Okay, astral sex. Oftentimes in this world, on this side of existence, teenagers, they find their genitals for the first time. They start to become attracted to the opposite sex, and even sometimes the same sex. But then it happens. The first wet dream, right? The teenagers will be fascinating about who it is that they want to be with. And then whilst they're laying their head on their pillow at night, they'll end up bringing in that fantasy into their dream world. But it's never enough to have sex with somebody who you've always wanted to be with inside of your subconscious mind. Instead, they'll want to turn to lucid dreaming, right? They'll want to learn how to control everything she does on command. And even the setting, the scenery. Usually during this time, teenagers are at a certain headspace in their life. Life just isn't easy. No one seems to understand what they're going through, or at least that's what teenagers think. Because honestly, every adult's been 16 or younger once. I guess where that misunderstanding is in the fact that sometimes adults may seem to think that they know what's going on at that precise moment. But teenagers, they're not upset because of the lifestyle that comes along with being a teenager. They're upset because of the small moments within their life. Whether that be during the day, during the week, that they need advice on, but the mother or the father are only looking at the bigger picture of what it means to be a teenager. I was your age once, meaning I've experienced everything you're going through, but that's not what they need. They don't need advice on that right now. They need advice on this little piece right now. Even though they may need advice elsewhere in their life, which an elder peer can see that they obviously need to work on. At that point in time, to a teenager, they couldn't care less. It would help if I had someone like that growing up, because then it would have made what happened next a hell of a lot easier. After learning how to master lucid dreaming, I started to play with astral projection. If you've seen my story, you'll understand how it is that I came about practicing that skill. Unfortunately, because of my headspace, I didn't end up going to the best of places within the astral realms. You see, like attracts like. My vibrational frequency was messed up emotionally. I was all over the place. And I was dealing with breakups, and I was being heavily manipulated by the people who I thought loved me. And my friends, who are my friends? Why are people stealing from me? Why is everything just going to crap? I couldn't even afford to live properly, because when you're younger, you want to grow up fast so that you can do everything independently. But you're a kid. Your parents pay for your food, It's really frustrating at times. And everything just got to me. The stress just stressed me out. And then it ended up bleeding into my astral projection practices. Now, I had no intention to have sex in the astral realms until certain things started to approach me who had that idea in mind. The first time I was approached, it was during a night where I was kind of heavily upset. I astral projected by accident at night. At night there is no light. Literally, the sun is out of the sky. And if you have no electronics on, no candles, nothing that could emit a light source, even your phone, then it's easier for things to manifest within your space. You see it on the movies a lot. Night falls. I'm upset. I pull away from Facebook and I lay down. So many things are going through my head. So many triggers previously before I got off the internet. Pop-ups showing breasts, and I would see things on TV a lot, music videos and posters even outside of my house. Big posters of people that were half naked. All of these things contributed towards me being triggered into a hyper-aroused state. So energetically, I was prime for quite a strange experience in the astrals. Now, like I said, like attracts like. So when I leave the body in this emotionally disturbed state, I ended up bumping into a creature which was also of the same vibration. But the fact of the matter is, we're not physical in the astrals. We're energy, okay? Now there are certain perks when it comes to being that of a formless nature. Everyone in 3D as it is right now wants to try to look beautiful. And we have people on this earth that have gone so far that they've ended up doing self-surgeries to themselves rather than booking an appointment with a plastic surgeon. They are willing to cut themselves to look a certain way. Here, in 3D, cutting off the flesh. So is it really surprising that there are beings of a formless nature that would choose to make themselves look more pleasing to the eye? If everybody in 3D had the ability to shapeshift, I will bet you guys $1,000. Heck, take all my money if I'm wrong. There will be people in this world that will deliberately choose to just stand there and shapeshift. Maybe to get rid of a mole on their face. Change the color of their eyes, the length of their hair, the height of their body, the size of their appendage. If we were given the ability to shapeshift, we would do it. Astral beings, they're just doing what they can, you know? And I guess it's kind of out of some sort of sick consideracy. They're being considerate of how they could potentially make people feel, or at least if they're good beings. This one, however, wasn't so good. You can feel it coming off her, okay? As I'm sat there on my bed, she's walking up to me, and she's trying to mask her emotions. Now here, you can tell if someone's got an agenda, right? You can tell by looking at them, you can feel it coming off of them. In the astral realm, heighten that feeling by about 10,000, 100,000 even. It's obvious when somebody's trying to manipulate you or when they're trying to hide their energy. You can feel it. You can just feel it. Protruding from them like a gross aura. She stood with a smile on her face, clearly aroused, and, well, hiding what she looked like. She then walked up to me and she kneeled down and placed her hands on the inside of my thighs. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I don't want anything to do with this because she doesn't feel right. She's just not quite put together properly, you know? I mean, she tried, she really did, to look the part. But there are just some things about energy that you can't hide. So I told her, I confronted her, I said, look, I know you're not the person you're trying to be. Show yourself or just get out of my space. She stopped smiling and then she dematerialized her face, and yet the static that made up her composure stayed within a certain point of space. It then reformed and hardened to create what she actually looked like. Could never have guessed it. If you were to get bed sheets, blue, dark blue, navy bed sheets, and put it over a woman's head and tie a rope around her neck, that is what she looked like. She had this indentation where her mouth should be, where she was trying to breathe. And she was just silent, eerie silent. And I asked her what her name was. She wouldn't speak to me. I told her to get up and leave. She wouldn't move. So I said, fine. If you won't leave, I will. And I got up and I walked out of my bedroom. That was the first experience I had with something that was trying to manipulate me by deceiving me into having a 3D experience. Because you see, entities like this have no idea what it's like to have sex. They don't. They can only draw from your memory. They literally know how to plug and play into your mind and use what you've experienced in 3D to structure and shape their astral body so that they can have some sort of a mock experience, a fake experience of what it could be like if they were, well, living. That's just some entities. The others are people who have passed on and they're not finished yet. You know, I'll talk about it on these series of videos, because I've had sex with many different beings in the astrals after learning how to discern this energy. Now remember, this was just my first time. I became good at discerning energy. After a while, I learned how to change my frequency energetically so I wasn't emotionally disturbed. And as the years went on, as I got good at astral projecting, when I did leave the body, I could control it. I can control how long I was out for. I can control who I was with. And it even got to the point where I met up with another woman who was also an astral projectioner here on Earth. There was another experience though. And it helps to know that there are some things in the astrals that actually have your back. You know, some people may call them spirit guides, angels. Spirit guides is more accurate in this sense. Because as I sit up out of my body again, this would be maybe, about 2 years later, I sit up out of my body and I look at the end of my room. Not this room, this is a different house, but in my other room it's really long. You know, there's paint all splashed over the walls. And as I look down the room, there's just my computer desk, nothing more. But 4 years ago, there used to be a bed there because I used to share the room with my brother. Now on my right, I have this large mirror that is able to reflect the other end of my room, you know, the end furthest away from my bed, where the desk should be. Because in the mirror, the desk isn't there. It's the bed. The same bed, and even the wallpaper has been painted blue. It's literally mirroring to me my old bedroom when my brother used to live in the room with me. Okay? Now this is important because as I look away from the mirror, I notice that the space in front of me, the desk, starts to shift and phase out of existence. It's like the two dimensions overlap each other. And my brother's bed is now there. Not only that, but there are 3 women on the bed in their birthday suit. But they don't look quite right. They look sickly. Their eyes, you know, the sockets are really deep. Pale skin, sweaty as if they're in some sort of a high fever. And they start doing this with their fingers, trying to, I guess, compel me to walk over there. Now remember, I've gotten pretty good at this point at discerning energy, noticing energy. There was no way I was going over there. Period. Nothing, no form of nudity could get me there. But as I stand up, the whole experience is interrupted by this guy who just bursts open into my room. And he has red eyes. They're really nice. Red eyes, like a hazily brown, but then they start to turn red. And pale skin. And he stops me like this and says, "Ryan, stop. Just stop." He's wearing a hat, kind of like this one, but lighter grey. He said, "You don't want to go over there, you don't want nothing to do with what they're doing over there, okay?" I was like, yeah, I know. It feels weird, right? And then as I'm saying that, I look past his face back into the mirror, and I could see their true form. Mirrors. Brilliant tools in the astrals. Great for unveiling hidden agendas when it comes to the appearance of oneself, okay? And as I look on the bed, I see the 3 women. Only they're not women anymore. You know when you get blue tack and you stretch the tack, right? And sometimes there's even holes in the tack? Imagine 3 beings, really small head, made out of a gas, and they're trying to become solid. And as they're trying to reach over to me, their arms are becoming stretched like the blue tack, or the chewing gum even. Their bodies seem to be linked into each other, merged into each other as they emit this strange pinkish blue light from the matter of their gas, their body, what they look like. Not only that, but they had no eyes. And when they tried to speak, it was as if their mouth or their lips were glued together. So as they were opening their mouth, it would tear their lips. But again, there was no flesh involved here. It was all gas trying to form as matter, pinkish blue gas. These creatures literally looked like that. Something out of your worst nightmare. There's no surprise there. We completely left the room and me and Daniel just started talking to each other, you know? Yeah, his name. Daniel, he told me when he died, how he died, how long he's been in the astrals for, and that he was going around in the astral realms and he was preventing people from falling into these traps. He was a guide in that sense. In spirit. he had passed on. He didn't have to look like some sort of angel who just descended from the heavens. Brilliant white wings with the energy and the halo protruding from his head. No. He was a human once. Just being kind. So yeah, these have been the first 2 astral projection experiences which were of a sexual nature. And in the next part of this video, I'm going to talk about my difficulties in trying to stay out, especially when it came to performing astral sex with another, and how hard it was to stay out of my body during that time. A lot of people think it's hard to last here, right, in 3D. The amount of focus you need in the astrals, that's otherworldly. But I'll put that in part 2. Subscribe to my YouTube channel to keep an eye out for these extra additions to my story when it comes to my interactions with other entities and other female astral projectioners in the astral realm. Or head on over to my YouTube channel already, because I've probably already posted it. I'm going to make the next series right now, after I cut this video.